Welcome to the longest running show in episodic television history. This is Monday Night Raw.
That's not what we're doing. That's actually a show that's on right about now. But that's how we are doing.
Try it again.
Okay. All right.
Welcome to SmackDown Live. No, that's not it either. What is this? What are we doing?
The show's not even called SmackDown Live anymore.
What are we doing though? Is this recording the Wrestlemania Wrestle thing?
We are recapping night 2 of the only Wrestlemania that was too big for one night, so it went into the second night to talk about.
Oh, I get it.
Earlier we talked about night 1, but that was a few drinks ago.
I get it. All right, so this is it. All right, you ready? This is it. Hang on. I got to get it Monday Night Raw set up in here. Hang on. There we go. And wait. All right, here we go. You ready? I'm not ready. All right, here we go. Give it time. All right, we're going to start in 3.
Wait, that wasn't part of the show, the other stuff?
Not yet. Here we go.
Okay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to night 2 of WrestleMania Recap. This is Steve the News Newport coming at you live with Sean the Commodore Cumberland. How's it going, Newport? I'm very excited.
I'm doing all right. I'm having a good Monday Night Raw or whatever we're doing tonight. I'm having drinks because that's what we did when we watched WrestleMania. So.
I, too, am having a little bit of this right here. This is some Evan Williams right there, our good friend Evan Williams. It's a whiskey.
Whatever beer was in the fridge.
Well, if it works, it works. Excuse me. Welcome once again to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. And they come together to form an amazing product for the WWE. In this case, it's called WrestleMania 36, the only show that was big enough to be on 2 nights in a row. Aside from all those shows that run consecutively every night. But as far as wrestling shows go, it is the only WrestleMania that's ever had to occur over 2 consecutive nights. I almost wish they were non-consecutive, but they were consecutive. So we had a weekend. We had a weekend of WrestleMania that was fantastic. It was a fantastic weekend of WrestleMania. Let's get on with night 2.
Well, the card on night 2 begins.
All right, hang on. In 3, 2, 1. Hang on. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to WrestleMania Night 2. This is the recap. This is the time. Steve the News Newport coming at you with Sean the Commodore Cumberland. How's everything going, Commodore?
Things are going all right. Not too much has changed since I last saw you a couple hours ago when we talked about night 1 of WrestleMania 36.
But that's the most amazing thing about WrestleMania 36 is the night that SmackDown and Raw superstars come together to go head-to-head. Not the way they do in Survivor Series, but in this case, the way they do. All right, in 3. I'm just kidding. We're not going to restart again. All right, hang on. Let's restart one more time.
How much is I'm keeping in or not?
This whole thing's just going on the thing, isn't it? It's unfair. All right, but anyway, let's talk WrestleMania. Hogan, the Giant, who wins? It's Hogan. He puts him over.
You know, I got to go with Andre the Giant. I think he's never been beat before. He's not going to get beat tonight.
I can't imagine that Hulkster will go over on him. But the power of Hulkamania in front of the 93,000 Hulkamaniacs that are going to be in attendance at the Silverdome tonight, I don't know. I just don't know.
Well, when an irresistible force meets an immovable object, well, some sort of sex offender law has been broken.
You're absolutely right. What do you say we get down to this recap, all right?
Okay, let's get down to the recap here.
Let's do this thing. All right.
Outtakes, like little beeps between these different things we're doing. Okay. All right. So
you want hang on.
3,
ready?
2, 1. Night 2 of WrestleMania kicks off with Charlotte Flair having won the Women's Royal Rumble, challenging for the NXT Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley. And that
was very exciting and interesting to me to see that Charlotte would be going for that NXT title, winning it another time. This is, I believe, Charlotte's second run with that. She's been the SmackDown Women's Champion, the Raw Women's Champion, a long time ago the NXT Women's Champion, and now she's come full circle and brought that title home for herself yet again. What do you think, though? Did Charlotte need that title, or is it just exciting to see her now on NXT?
I don't think it's about Charlotte needing the title. It's, I think, about trying to raise the profile of NXT as they go to head with another wrestling organization every Wednesday night. So I think they're trying to bring more stars over there. They brought Finn Balor over there, and this is their way of getting Charlotte Flair over there. I don't know what this does for Rhea Ripley. Certainly having a match with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania raises her profile. But I don't know. I found it interesting that they had two NXT superstars and had them both lose to the established stars. So I thought that was an interesting choice. I'll have to see where it goes. But again, my takeaway is bringing Charlotte to NXT.
To me, yeah, it felt like they were really building up NXT just to see them kind of be brought down right there at the end, because there was these new stars time to shine, and then we see Charlotte taking the gold, for example. So it's unique. It's cool, but it's unique all on the same time.
And they did put on a very good match, I thought.
I concur completely. I really think it was a lot of fun. I really thought it was going to go the other way, but Charlotte took the victory right there near the end of the match, which is how matches end. So that's pretty cool. What did we see next? That's just the beginning of WrestleMania.
Next, we had Aleister Black going against Bobby Lashley out there with Lana, of course. Aleister Black ultimately picking up the victory, and that's what happened in that match.
That's basically what happened in that match. It wasn't exactly one that people were excited about or looking forward to, but both performers brought their A game the best they could. Lashley with Lana in his corner there, that's still a point of contention. To have a match like that on Rusev Day, it's gotta hit you somewhere right in the feels when you see that.
Yeah, of all days to have that happen on Rusev Day, I think was a little heartbreaking. You didn't even see Rusev as part of the shows on his day, either of his.
Yeah, to have a show on Rusev Day and to have him not even be a part of that performance, it's just disappointing. It's just disappointing, to say the absolute very least. But it was an okay match. It was fun. It was entertaining. There was some good technical wrestling in there. And then ultimately, Aleister Black walked away the victor in that match. So congratulations, Aleister Black. Moving on to the love story of the century. We have Otis of Heavy Machinery taking on Dolph Ziggler. Now, you may be familiar with the backstory here with Mandy Rose. The Valentine's Day scenario. This was a big moment for me. I think all of us can sort of feel for Otis in this with what happened there. Commodore, I'll have you explain to the audience what happened in just a minute. But I feel like a story like that, which is very personally driven, it really allows you to feel for the performer involved, the wrestler in this case, Otis, who was, for the lack of a better word, screwed over by Dolph Ziggler, and not Mandy Rose, but her partner, Sonya Deville.
Yeah, Mandy had agreed to go on a date with Otis for Valentine's Day. Otis received a text seemingly from Mandy saying that she was going to be late, so he showed up late. So late, in fact, that Mandy had been there for hours, and ultimately Dolph Ziggler swooped in. Now, after this happened, I got to tell you, I had a feeling in my gut that that text had actually been sent by Sonya Deville, and surely enough, on SmackDown, it was revealed that was the case. So this opens up a lot of interesting possibilities. We're going to see perhaps Mandy feuding with her former best friend and tag team partner, Sonya Deville. And we got to see Otis ride off into the sunset with God's most perfect creation, Mandy Rose. And this storyline really gives people like me a lot of false hope. And in this time that we are living in, false hope, I think, is what we all needed. So I'm glad to see it end this way so I can aspire to things that'll never happen.
I can't say it'll never happen for you, Commodore. Love's labors will not be lost on you, nor were they lost on Otis this week at WrestleMania. Good times for Otis, a good moment. And Dolph Ziggler, well, frankly, he zigged when he should have zagged.
Well, you need to learn when to run and gun and when to lock and load. But we're going to move on to what was probably the best. What was that?
He's cosmically average.
It's. I've been accused. I've been called that very same thing. But we move on to what was, I think, not my favorite part of the show, but definitely the best match of the night. Returning Edge taking on Randy Orton, and hell of a story, hell of a build-up.
Yeah. I can't agree with you more, Commodore. Having a match like that in modern WWE, to see Edge come back at all was, first of all, that was the moment everybody was kind of waiting for. Ever since the Royal Rumble, when we saw Edge make his return in January, we thought this was going to be the big one, and they did not disappoint. But they did something a little different than they might do under regular circumstances. This is another opportunity for them to use the fact that they are not performing in front of a live audience.
Yeah, and they fought all through the Performance Center, just about, I think. You've been in that building before, and you pretty much told me they went to every part of that building that exists. They used every prop they could. They did some high fall ladders, some props. And Edge and Randy Orton, I don't think it's a stretch to say, are two of the best in the history of the business. Certainly, I'm a huge Edge fan. I love seeing his return. The storyline that's been built up over the past couple months, which they also brought Beth Phoenix in for, I think has been very well done, very, very dramatic, very intriguing, very everything the build-up for a wrestling match should be. Mm-hmm. And injected, I think, a good amount of reality that was in it. But, you know, Edge is one of the best. It's a shame his big WrestleMania return could not be in front of the roar of the crowd, but he and Randy Orton, I think, certainly delivered the best they could possibly deliver, and this was the best match of the night. I think best match easily.
I understand, not necessarily my favorite part of the night. We'll get to that later, but yeah, but it was the best wrestling of the night, and one of two major standout moments of last night's portion of WrestleMania, which is still weird to say, last night's portion of WrestleMania 36. But I just thought that it was so neat to see Edge go up there and to go over, and he, of course, winning the match was fantastic, which means we haven't seen the last of Edge. This was not a one and done. He's hoping to stay with it for as long as he can, and I just think it's really neat to have Edge back, essentially. He might not be there all the time, but you can bet he's probably going to be around more than Brock Lesnar.
I think Edge is going to contribute fantastically, both as an in-ring performer, and as an entertainer. Just having him on the show is going to make the show better. I followed his career from about 1999 onwards. I've seen a lot of great moments with him. He's we're seeing him as a babyface now, but he's also one of the greatest heels in the business when he's playing that role. I think at this stage of his career, everyone's going to cheer him no matter what he does.
He's gotten to that status. Yeah, I completely I get that.
Very excited. Edge certainly delivered and is capable of delivering. Yes, I'm sure they employed some editing in terms of how they did it, but there's no reason not to in this circumstance. Make it as cinematic as you can.
When you have that opportunity to film wrestling, you can make it look as seamless as possible in those moments. But I also have no doubt that if we were in a ring, Edge could still bring it. So
there's no doubt in my mind. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind.
He was great. That was it. So let's give it up for Edge right there, guys. That was fantastic. After that, though, we did move on into something else.
Yeah, I moved on to a Raw tag team title defense. The Street Profits, who've done some great stuff in terms of their like SNL parodies over the past few months. And, great to see their sort of weekend update. Retain their titles against. Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm not even sure who their opponents were. They're both recent call-ups from NXT that Zelina Vega has been managing, and it was good to see. Right. I didn't believe they were going to win, and they did.
I remember Zelina Vega being there, but not her compatriots. Who even now I don't remember who they were. I don't have it written down. It was a good match. I recall it was a lot of fun. But again, the Street Profits, they're nowhere near done with their title reign, and they're the kind of guys who, well, technically, Commodore, like you and I, they feed off of an audience. So what they're going to need for major success going forward is an audience. So luckily, they weren't stripped of that opportunity now, just because there wasn't an audience there.
And they were in an unenviable position of having to follow Edge and Randy Orton, too. So I think the next match was not a great spot to go on because you can't top something like that.
I always try to look at it not as a follow-up to this match, but as its own thing. And I think everybody kind of tries to do that when thinking back on a match. And it was not the most exciting match in the world. It wasn't the best match, certainly of the night. But it was still a good time. It was a good match. It felt almost more like an episode of Raw, not at all like a WrestleMania moment for them. And I can't help but think that the Street Profits in Tampa Bay, in front of however many people could have been in Raymond James Stadium, they would have really brought the house down if they were given that opportunity.
And keep in mind, there was also a last-minute substitution in this match as well, because Andrade was supposed to be the current United States champion, but he is out on injury, I believe.
There you go.
Research, but that's just another thing that contributed to me not really being emotionally invested in the match, just despite being a fan of the Street Profits and a fan of Zelina Vega.
It's true. She's great. But anyway, that's not a bad match. It went through. It went on. And what do we have next?
We move on to the SmackDown Women's Championship, a fatal five-way match involving the champion Bayley, her best friend Sasha Banks, Tamina, Lacey Evans, and Naomi. Naomi in front of her hometown lack of crowd in Orlando.
That's right. They brought WrestleMania back to her hometown. She didn't have to drive that far, but she didn't have the crowd behind her either. In fact, nobody did. That's been the whole point of this particular WrestleMania. But it was an exciting bout. I had no doubt that friendships would be tested. By friendships, I mean that of the Boss and Hug, or at least formerly Hug, connection. We will see what's going on with them in the future. But she being Sasha Banks, was put out a little bit early. It almost cost Bayley everything in that moment. But tell us, Commodore, what you felt going through the emotions, remembering that this is a family show.
Well, I'll tell you, I was surprised that we didn't try to go for the surprise of Sasha and Bayley imploding completely. But in some ways, that's a little bit more interesting. Bayley did accidentally hit Sasha at one point during the match.
Or I don't believe that for a second.
Okay.
Bayley knows exactly what she's doing. Bayley's the perfect kind of girl. She's the hugger. She's the one we love. Now she's a heel. She's a bad guy. But what is she really out for? Persona non grata. Bayley. That's it. She's been there, and every single week, she and Sasha would go out there and play. But notice the adjective, Commodore. Play. This is the big leagues now.
It certainly is, and friendships certainly do get tested. I think everyone put in a good performance. Tamina eliminated early on after sort of a four-way team up by the other members, and then we saw alliances form. I'm interested in seeing where the Sasha and Bayley story is going to go. I think eventually things are going to have to come to a head, but it's almost more interesting the slower this burn is. Hopefully, eventually we will get that sort of pivotal moment where they turn on each other.
I truly believe that there's going to be a Sasha versus Bayley moment, and that Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart. But before we go back to that, Sasha and Bayley is coming. Maybe it'll be SummerSlam. Maybe it'll be WrestleMania 37. Who knows when it'll be? But Sasha versus Bayley will happen. And like you were saying, Commodore, the slower the burn, the better on this one. Although I must admit to you, seeing SmackDown Women's Champion Lacey Evans would not have disappointed me either.
No, and I think had there been a crowd, Lacey is who they all would have been behind, and we've certainly seen her switch sides to the babyface sides of things recently. She's doing a great job. I do want to point out how much I enjoy Bayley is doing some fun stuff as a heel, like arguing with the commentators, actually, because they can actually each other.
Michael Cole be a part of the match that way. Because
she yelled at both JBL and Michael Cole at points during the match. So I think even though I very much see Bayley more as her babyface character, she is doing some really good stuff as a heel, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate her work in that regard. And certainly don't mind seeing her title reign continue. I'm just interested to see where we're going from her.
Agreed completely on that one. Congratulations again to Bayley. Still a hugger in my heart, though. I still love Bayley from.
I believe someday the Bayley buddies will be back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. May take years before the buddies are ready to forgive her. But I want to say someday they'll be back. But maybe I'm got hope in my heart. Much like with the Mandy Rose situation.
I could use a hug. I think most of us could during this quarantine, Capital, use a hug from somebody.
You hug me from 6 feet away, News.
That's how it goes, Commodore. That's how it goes. So after Bayley retained, we moved on with a little bit more action in the WWE.
We move on to what for me was undisputedly my favorite part of the night. This is going to be something people love or hate, depending on what.
This was the most polarizing thing in the WWE universe right now. And in fact, in almost as long as I can remember, if you go on Facebook and find people talking about this next match that we're about to talk about, it's exactly like you said. They loved it. They thought it was the most genius thing in the world, or they hated it, or didn't understand it, or get it. I barely want to call it a match. I want to call it a segment.
Yeah, it's fair to say it was my favorite thing on the show, but I couldn't call it the match of the night because I'm not entirely sure you can describe it as a match. But I got to tell you how much I enjoy. We're talking, of course, about the Firefly Funhouse match between The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and John Cena. And this match just reminded me of how talented both those guys are as characters and how they can play such different personas so well, because within the match, both of them played multiple personas.
And the thing I have to say about it is this match, this segment, I feel like in a match, two wrestlers have to lay hands on each other. So I don't think in good conscience I can call this a match. But to see my favorite wrestler, I will make no secret about it, is John Cena. My favorite guy is John Cena. He has been since I started with being a fan of wrestling. I got into it during the end of the Ruthless Aggression era. And it was one of those things kind of where you just tag on to a wrestler because you want to pick one. And John was my guy. And so finding out more and more about Big Match John as we go throughout the years, his history, his passion for the business, the way he grew, the way his characters changed, became a hobby of mine. Just following Cena from beginning to middle to end of his career. Not that his career is over, but following him up to our current point at the very least. And then Hollywood Cena too. Not Hollywood Cena as in, heel turn. But we'll get to that too.
I mean, let's break down kind of what we saw in this match. I think it's very interesting to examine. I think the match is better the more context you have on John Cena's history, on even the Monday Night Wars history and the history of Bray Wyatt. So the premise is we see John Cena make his entrance like normal, but he eventually, after an introduction from Bray Wyatt, finds himself in the Firefly Funhouse, where after Bray had told him that John Cena is going to face his most dangerous opponent yet, himself. So we have then we see John coming out behind the old SmackDown fist, which is sort of what the SmackDown looked like when John Cena made his debut. And they recreated John Cena's first appearance, where he was in those sort of colorful tights going and challenging Kurt Angle. And you and I recently watched the...
That's what I was going to say. We just saw the documentary on the network.
Where John Cena talked about how that was his greatest failure, and he almost got fired, and they very much played into that. Bray Wyatt saying almost word for word what Kurt Angle said. We had a puppet commentator version of Vince McMahon, which
that was amazing.
Macho Buzzard, a reference to Macho Man's stint with Vince.
Unbelievable. Yeah, to see all that, to have Puppet McMahon out there, to have Cena going through all these different...
shit.
That was it, and that was to hear that too in WrestleMania. It was perfect. It was exactly what that segment needed to be. Like, to me, that segment was to wrestling what Legends of Tomorrow is to the DC Comics universe. And you'll either get that reference you want. You don't have to out there. It's lighthearted, it's fun, and it brings back a much-needed element to the WWE that, frankly, they've been lacking, and frankly, that only John Cena and Bray Wyatt could have pulled off. If Wyatt had anyone else in the Funhouse doing their career that's modern day on WWE, it wouldn't have worked the same way. It was Cena who changed so many times. The rapper persona, this and that. But to go back and
the doctor, we saw John Cena come out as the doctor of Thugonomics. We heard him cut a rhyme like he used to, that was my favorite incarnation of John Cena, as it was, I think, for a lot of fans. We even had Bray Wyatt taunting John Cena with a "you can look but you can't touch," a reference to we all know that situation. There were just so many things. There were a lot of layers to it, and as someone who's into the business, I was able to get all those layers, and I really, really enjoyed that. And of course, we had the comparison, of course, with his early career by juxtaposing him with Hulk Hogan's early career. John Cena's
that was amazing
white
too.
Baby face.
Having the Saturday Night Heat intro, having the Monday Nitro intro from WCW in there, having them use the entire catalog of what they had in the past to recreate and to bring that out there. And seeing John Cena in the NWO was something I never knew I needed.
And I think that was it. The comparison with Hulk Hogan is there. It's for so many years, all fans kept saying is, we want John Cena to turn heel. And had he had the opportunity to do that, I think it would have in some ways made him cool again, the same way being Hollywood Hogan made Hulk Hogan cool again. And John would have had so much real life anger to draw from, because people kind of tended to boo him almost for no reason. Yeah. And I think he could have drawn so much from that, and seeing him kind of almost go heel in the match got some of that out there, and that was a layer that I loved. That's how I interpreted the metaphor, and I loved it.
I completely agree with that, and I completely agree with people booing him for the sake of booing him. I've been to a handful of SmackDowns, Raws, and live shows, and I've been fortunate to see Cena in the ring a couple of times. And one thing you'll always remember is "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks."
So,
Let's go Cena, Cena. But what you don't notice is everyone is saying both. It's not half and half. It's all the people.
Yeah. Now it's just it's kind of a thing.
Yes,
Everyone
knows that. It's everybody says "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." It's like it's just part of the vernacular of it. Just like with Kurt Angle when they say "You suck" when he comes out to the theme song, you know. So
and let's not just either Bray Wyatt's performance. He played all the puppets, I believe, is one part of it. But
let's not undercut the importance of Ramblin' Rabbit here.
Fantastic. Yeah, but you see Bray Wyatt in his Firefly Funhouse as the Fiend and his old cult leader character all within the course of that match, and doing a great Eric Bischoff impersonation during that. Yeah. I'm a huge Eric Bischoff mark, so I enjoyed that. It's just I just loved watching this segment. It just really made me happy. It told a great story in a non-traditional wrestling way.
To me, it's really unique when I were to think there are two breakout moments of this WrestleMania, three really, but let's forget for a moment The Undertaker and AJ Styles. It's Edge and Randy, and it is this segment with Cena and Wyatt, because love it or hate it, it was WWE to its core. It was WWF to its core. And I think that is why I loved it so very much. It was a callback to what the product used to be, using the only guy. No, I mean, I know there are other great wrestlers, and I'm not just trying to sit here and placate John Cena, but using the only guy whose career at current had the longevity to break into that many pieces. It was they did exactly what they could, exactly when they could, and exactly the way they could only do it with John Cena.
And let's even talk about the ending, because John Cena cut a hell of a promo on Bray Wyatt about him being sort of the most, I'm going to put it into the most overrated performer, the most overprivileged performer. And I think a lot of fans took exception to that, because so many people love what Bray Wyatt has been doing. But in retrospect, it's brilliant, because those words were turned right around and put on him at the end of the match as he was defeated by the Fiend. And I just love the storytelling. And you can tell me till the cows come home that this is the worst thing you've ever seen. And nothing will stop me from enjoying this. I've already watched it twice. Yes. I'm probably going to go back.
I'm going to go back and watch it for this. And I got to say, not that anybody watching would disagree with us, or even if you do agree with us, the company is called WWE, and let's remember what the E stands for. Federation. No, I'm sorry. No, it's entertainment. The E stands for entertainment. And that is what I got, and that is what the world got 10 times over from John Cena and Bray Wyatt in that match. So have we been talking about it longer than most of them? Yes, because to me it was the breakout moment of WrestleMania 36.
It was my favorite part. As I said immediately after, I have never been so sports entertained in my life.
Exactly. I've never been so sports entertained in my life. That's exactly the way to put it. Now, this is great. This is a WrestleMania that had 3 breakout moments, and this is only because of the nature of this WrestleMania. Had this gone off in Raymond James Stadium the way it was originally supposed to, who knows what we'd even be talking about right now as a best moment. But I will also go and say that had that segment aired during that, it wouldn't have been well received, because
it wouldn't work nearly as well in a different context. So it was the perfect thing for this event, the way that it panned out.
Exactly right. And guys, that is WrestleMania 36.
There's one more match.
Oh, there was.
There's one more match, as Brock Lesnar defends the WWE World Championship against the winner of this year's Men's Royal Rumble, Drew McIntyre.
Now, I got to say, last night after WrestleMania ended, I left the network on, and a bunch of different specials came on. One came on about The Undertaker, one came on about Edge. And just before I ended up turning off the TV at like 1:30 in the morning, they were showing a 24 about Drew McIntyre. And it took place leading up to the events of that took place in the month of March, leading up to about April 1st of 2020, I believe it said. So we're talking just a couple of days ago. This episode was still being made. So I was surprised to see it on at 1 a.m. on the network. But it was following Drew McIntyre, talking about his career, talking about what was going on, and how at one point Vince McMahon called Drew McIntyre the future of this business and the future WWE champion. Now, this was way back in 2009, I believe, that Vince said that on the air. And Drew obviously has never had a championship opportunity and never won the title until last night on WrestleMania 36. And I don't know what it feels like to really be the WWE champion. Yeah, I've got his belt here. You've got the belt there, Commodore.
I kind of know what it feels like.
But to have that moment and to work your whole life for that moment, and then to have it on a soundstage, to have it filmed probably multiple times even, and they're like, cut, let's do it again, cut, let's do it again. I don't know for sure. I'm not trying to take away the magic of the business here, but it wasn't.
I really think Brock Lesnar would have stuck around for more than one day.
That's probably true. They edited around Lesnar for all of that, I'm sure. But you're right. It was a match that Drew worked his whole life for. It was over in just a few minutes, and it was a match that involved Brock Lesnar, so it was terrible. And I'm going to say that. I'm just saying it. If it's a match that involves Brock Lesnar, it's terrible. The only reason Brock Lesnar is important in any way is because Paul Heyman is the best in the business.
I won't go as far as you. I will agree that my favorite part of Brock Lesnar is Paul Heyman. I think he's capable of having a good match, and I think I'm fine with him being a special attraction, but if you're a special attraction, you should not hold the championship. So I'm sort of glad he lost the title, but I'm worried that Paul Heyman's prophecy from Monday Night Raw that next year Brock Lesnar will be standing there with the title again going into WrestleMania may come true. Like I think it's fine to have him as part of the show. He's interesting in some ways for that, but he shouldn't be the champion. So I'm glad that Drew McIntyre had it, but his moment was obviously not what it should have been. I know I watched that same documentary you did. I actually watched it before WrestleMania because it was available on the network.
It did start prior to that. I hadn't watched it yet, but I knew it was there, so good.
Yeah, so knowing his story sort of made you invest in it. They told a great story with Brock and Drew at the Royal Rumble to build up to this, but the match was a quick Brock Lesnar match, which maybe would have had more impact in front of a crowd. I don't know. I don't think you should have Lesnar closing the show. Like I remember a couple years ago, they closed with Lesnar and Reigns, and it just really it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth on the show. But for this show, I'm happy for Drew, but he probably deserved better. I'm not that invested in Drew McIntyre as a character, but that's just me. That's not a knock on him. I just haven't quite connected with him.
I get that. Yeah. I honestly had more respect, let's call it, for the Drew McIntyre character after seeing that WWE 24. WWE Chronicle. It wasn't a 24. It was WWE Chronicle. Yeah, but I had watched it prior to WrestleMania. So it's fun. But I'm one of those people, Commodore, and you're the same way. And many of you fans out there that are watching, nobody's watching this, but many of you out there that if you happen to be seeing this, you might feel the same way. The history of wrestling and what's going on behind the scenes is far more entertaining than Monday Night Raw and SmackDown to me. That's why the WWE Network is so cool to me. Finding the ins and outs of these people, getting to know who they are as people, made me care a lot more about Drew McIntyre.
And frankly, not to keep circling back and to dismiss this match, but the fact that I spent so much time watching these types of documentaries made me appreciate the Firefly Funhouse match because I had so much context for the history.
Right before the world ended, I remember we watched the John Cena special, or the Ruthless Aggression episode featuring John Cena's career.
Yeah, and I've watched Monday Night War countless times and a lot of the 24 Chronicles of 365s. So for $9.99 a month, that's really what I get my money's worth out of.
And by that you mean the money I spend on the network. That's my one thing.
Don't share your network pass. Pay the $9. WrestleMania is free anyway. But anyway.
That's it. I'm really glad that we got to do WrestleMania this year. And I'm glad that you guys got to see it too. I'm glad we got to stick with this thing and work it all the way through, Commodore. Very cool. But before we wrap up entirely, WrestleMania final thoughts, the whole thing. I mean, probably everything we've already said. There's nothing new to say, but breakout moments, Cena, Edge. I shouldn't just say Cena. It's Cena and Bray Wyatt. If it wasn't for Bray Wyatt, we wouldn't have had that. So, but that to me,
Bray Wyatt has been absolutely brilliant as this dual character he's been playing. And again, he played even more characters throughout the course. I'm a huge fan of Bray Wyatt, and I have a ton of respect for John Cena. I'm not quite as big a fan as you are, but I have a lot of respect for him, and I think he gets a lot of undeserved flack and is a tremendously talented person. I think history will show that even more so as time goes on.
I agree completely with that. I think for me, it's tough to pick one breakout moment of WrestleMania because it's either Edge and Randy Orton or the John Cena thing. And which is not to take away from AJ Styles and The Undertaker's amazing Boneyard match the night before.
Those are the three standouts, and those are the three things that make this WrestleMania worth watching are the Boneyard match, the Firefly Funhouse, and Randy Orton and Edge.
But to just choose one of those, only one you can choose. I've got my answer. You probably have yours. You go first. I'll finish up with it. Then we'll wrap up.
For me, it's very easily the Firefly Funhouse match. Not to take away from those other two moments, but I don't know. I think that was almost written for someone like me, I guess. And again,
I completely get that. Yeah.
The first thing they ever did. I loved it. Loved it.
Here's my choice, believe it or not, is not the same as yours, Commodore.
Okay.
But as far as segments go, that's the one I'm going to watch back. My answer for this one is Edge and Randy Orton because it was a wrestling match and it was WrestleMania.
That's
I have to go with that because it was wrestling. It was backstage brawls the way we used to see back in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression. We don't see as many of those now. They took full advantage of that performance center, and they wrestled very, very well all the way up to the top of that semi-truck. And I just think that as wrestling goes, that stole the show. And as
you're absolutely right, and I will say, as I've already said, that was easily the best match of the night.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's it for me. But I think that's how I would just have to put it. Take the world out of the equation. Take the word world and throw it away. Take the world wrestling, and then we have Edge and Randy Orton. Take the world federation. I'm not the word. What is it? Entertainment.
Entertainment.
Take whatever the E stands for, and that's John Cena in a nutshell. That's my 2 cents on WrestleMania 36. Oh man.
But again, I had a great time just watching the show. I'm glad we got to watch it. And I had a great time going back and recapping it with you tonight. Hopefully,
Commodore.
Someone else can kick out of this, but we got a kick out of that, and that's enough for me.
I think that's all that matters right there, guys. So if anybody out there still watching, thank you so much for that. I'm Steve the News Newport with
Sean the Commodore Cumberland.
I feel like it's where you get to say your own name. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We'll see you at the next one, guys. Money in the Bank coming up. If the world's still there, we'll be there. We'll see you next time.
Let me in.